Here's a short update. I have quite a bit of dream journals from the last collection, and I have even more that I'm working on currently, but these are up until the point of my last recordings from the last. I took a short break just to gather myself, collect myself, all that good stuff, and I'm still writing dream journals. So yeah, this stuff will just be an update from what I missed. These come up until really recently. So yeah. This dream is from March 3rd, 2021, and it's one of the first dreams I wrote. So I just want to get that out of the way. I think this was one of the dreams that just inspired me to start writing really quick. Okay. Horror movie. The protagonist is cloned and killed prior, and is being forced to wear a belt that possibly explodes, told it explodes. Upstairs, all the windows are locked, and the whole place resembles a Saw-type dungeon. One of the robot clones awfully pretends to be a human, says that there are no other belts or keys for the belt upstairs in an empty concrete room of a factory. The clone looks around downstairs and finds a plate covered in thinly sliced wood circles with a note under a small thinly cut piece of wood that advises the protagonist to go upstairs. She finds a dead mouse in a cage in a square bathtub drainage pool. In the cage, there's a box that has a note stapled to the bottom that says, "She is lying, check the box." There's bite marks all around the box, indicating it's possibly poison that killed the mouse instead of the food, and there is still a key underneath the food. The protagonist puts the other belt after unlocking slowly, not to raise questions. I'm guessing that she put another belt on. She stealthily hides the old belt on top of the hamster cage where it was found with the decaying rodent. The robot walks into the room right after the protagonist uses the key and glitches up even harder, talking and repeating herself in robot spasms. Then she acts completely normal. She talks about how you shouldn't believe everything and grabs the protagonist and pins her against the table. Was driving around town. The world seemed like an old video game. I drove to Tyler the Creator's house, and we were supposed to make a song together. I went to an insane asylum inspired building where it was just a hallway and stairs on the left side through a door, and it went down 4 times. I believe it was a tower type building, and they called it Rikers Island, and it was inspired by a jail for some reason. I was taking my meds, and I dropped a vitamin D pill, and they got mad at me for trying to throw it away. 2 ladies at the front desk of this hospital. One said they had to break open the capsule to throw it away, and the other blamed me for the pill and was mad. I met my artist friend, and I was collecting video games to show to him, but I kept collecting movies too by accident. Bad movies, I suppose. He was outside for the rest of the dream, hanging out with the kids, and he never came back to see the games. I was with the Scooby-Doo group and exploring the swamp, and it was pretty intense. We ended up in a trailer where I flipped it multiple times and got stuck inside, and it kept flipping, and I got sick. I was on open waters with my granddad and a ton of other people. It was really dark, and there was a floating platform on the water, like a community. They found a syringe and were trying to find out who's bringing drugs on board, so I destroyed a bunch of drug paraphernalia and tried to flush them. But when I got outside my room, which looked exactly like my girlfriend's grandma's guest room, they all got mad at me, and I couldn't reason with them. Starts in a Kmart type building, emptying out heavily, very slippery floors, riding shopping carts around the center of the store. The walls are kind of vast yet claustrophobic. In a strip mall outside is a parking lot and a Target to the right, also a Goodwill to the left, and on the farthest right is a grocery store. Next dream. Crawling through a house basement in the forest. Was walking around the forest looking at neighbors weed whacking. There was a mall and someone just abandoned me going into this store, and I abandoned them by walking towards the back with all these kid stores near the exit. The mall was huge. I started walking back and they waved me down, showed me a hole in the ground in a clothing store, and it took me to the basement. Uncle was repairing my roof at home, and yeah, there's typos in here. I guess my cousin was knocking on the door when I was in the bathroom. I was in line at a Save-A-Lot buying a Godspeed You Black Emperor CD, and I accidentally followed the line outside the door. And I cut in front of people because I felt like I would have been in front of them anyway, and everyone was mad at me. Here's the next dream. In the treehouse, ghouls attack. Girl works a phone line. And an isolated building that's like a school turns into an old building with stairs that lead to nowhere. I take photos. I sleep next to this one artist on the floor. Another guy who is light blonde takes my place on I don't know what this is supposed to mean, but I know exactly the dream. They're playing PS2 with my uncle, and yeah, on this floor in this weird mansion type place with like a basketball court, and yeah, like the basketball court was right behind this room, but it's like a mansion. It was weird. It was like a treehouse mansion. And I guess somebody was collecting piss in bottles, blowing them up, and watching funny videos on a screen in the living room. I don't know if that was a separate dream, like I fell back asleep or something, but yeah. And then here's the next one. This is actually going to be a really fractured collection of events. Outside at night with Liz on swing. The fire burned down a lot. I don't know what fire. We went to an Amazon mall and my grandma got a robot haircut. This actually I do remember. In this mall, it was a very surreal, dark mall, I guess. I could look out the window and see like a town, like a cityscape, and it was, all the lights. It was kind of dystopian, to be honest. And this mall was like one room, like it kind of looked like an apartment building, like that you'd see in some rich something. It cost a lot of money, you feel, and yeah, it was like a mall, I guess, just the context of it, but it didn't look like a mall. We drive through Battle Creek, which is my old hometown, and I showed my uncle, Blake, some Psychic TV CDs, which I doubt he'd like. I cooked a hamburger and made some tea, and I played IRA songs for my granddad and my cousin Jake. There's a bat in my cabinet, and it came out and I couldn't scream. It just perched itself on my metal bunk bed at my parents' house. That sounds a lot like another dream I had in like this mental asylum where the place turned into like a huge lake, and like I was swimming across the lake, and then I was back in my room and I looked in through the attic and there was a bat, and it just like slowly came down and it looked me in the eyes. And I had about probably 3 or 4 good bat dreams. One where I got bit and I was dying of rabies and I couldn't get help. Okay, so here's the next dream. At my mom's house, sitting on the old big couch facing the window, my mom had me throw away food that was old. I was in a world that looked like a school level from Tony Hawk. Like, these school levels were pretty huge. They looked like, just like, they had indoor parts. I don't know how to exactly explain it. A lot of the Tony Hawk level dreams are just like really distorted, but new locations, if that makes sense. The New York level was like a huge downhill part. I couldn't really explain everything, but it was just like really impractical. But I feel like these school levels in my dream would have probably made sense in the context of Tony Hawk. And some of the warehouse levels too, because they just had like new locations, which was kind of cool, you know. But I was walking through bookshelves and teleporting to other places. I went into the kitchen of my childhood home, and I was looking at the top of the fridge. I had to go to a video game place where they are made, and to complain about something. And a lady came out and started crying. Then I followed her outside the building, and it was like a bank. I don't remember any of that. Here's the next dream. I was in my hometown. It was claustrophobic. All the houses were together, and right above the house, there's a bridge just over a main line of road. Yeah, this was kind of interesting. My small town was kind of just like a really cut up and distorted place, and it was kind of like a city. It's got these huge bridges, or these huge like highways going over our houses, and it was just like really weird. And somebody outside tried to fight me, so I took a sledgehammer to him. And there's a McDonald's in town on a crossroad, and there's also a Walgreens. Here's a good one. I was in a record shop in Asheville. I was walking around looking at makeup and stuff like it was a store, food and whatever, you know. And I met Lil Ugly Mane's brother, you know, Travis Miller. And he said he was looking for an Oblivion Access vinyl. And that was an interesting dream. I was at a party here at my home, and I was sitting on a couch, and a little girl kept hitting my legs and climbing on the table and jumping on the couch. And I moved the table, and I went to the main room. I saw my cousins, and then I ran away with a knife and some money. I saw my brother while I was locked up in a car, and they were trying to get to this power thing. I don't know what that means. I wanted them to leave it alone, so I threw my mom and my brother at trees and at piles of trash that cut them up and made them bleed really bad. I eventually took them back home, and I poured peroxide all over my brother's legs and back. I was in Meyer walking around, and it was really dark, and they had COVID vaccines in these machines. I put in my numbers on this motel type orange piece of plastic, and I sat down, and they injected me with this really heavy vaccine. I could feel really well. It didn't hurt, but it was really uncomfortable. Yeah, I don't remember if that was like another weird surreal COVID dream. I don't think I've ever had a lot of dreams about like COVID vaccines, but usually it's like, you know, just in public. I hope I do get to like the asylum one, because it's like a dystopian asylum, and you know, it was like post-apocalyptic, and it was interesting. I was in my basement, and I went upstairs to my parents' room and talked to my brother. Eventually, we all went to Arkansas. When we got there, we went into this house, and there's a big dog, and my uncle was upset. We just walked into his house. It was a brick house with stickers that looked human size, and there were family members there. I was about to make some coffee when one asked me to reach the liquor cabinet because she wanted some liquor, I guess. Here's the next dream. I was playing Shadow Man, and I was in a big cave that had platforming. I was walking in and out of gas stations and dollar stores, and I saw the future. I saw my uncle Mike at a gas station, and I went to the bathroom and noticed it was him. I saw someone at an industrial area, and that person was a part of a future. I was in a massive amusement park looking for my boots, and I was trying to climb to the top rafters that let me oversee the rooms. And one room had this middle section on the ground that the top section spinned around. I also went into my late middle school in foggy hallways, and in a midsection there's a big open room with a stage in Johnny Knoxville. I also at one point went to the store. Yeah, I can't really say much about the middle school dream, but I remember it a little bit. It was like, you know, I mean, this stuff sounds familiar, but I couldn't really tell you actually. So let's just move on to the next dream. I was at my elementary school, and there's a ton of buildings and even church services type at a area at a basketball court. I sat beside the tree, and a weird version of the Beach Boys came over, and they were singing old Brian Wilson demos. So I rode in a bus into town. I saw a surplus area in a brick restaurant with the dark interior. I got into this building, and it seemed to be underground, and I was playing with a dog. The dog was giving me a basketball, so I threw it, and it hit his eye so bad that the ball made a huge red mark and even got stuck in its eyes, or its eye. When we got out, we went back to the school. Then I walked over to a surplus that turned into a market, and the place was really huge and otherworldly. There were large shelves all around. In the center, there were regular-sized shelves. So I went to the edges of the store since I didn't really want anything, and there were a ton of fake foods. Now, this dream is really interesting because I can remember it pretty well. It was like this huge flea market, but it was like the combination of a flea market and a store. So an outdoor store location, like, I don't know, the best thing I can explain is like one of those like family-owned store type businesses with like really weird stuff everywhere. Maybe like smoke accessories and like custom belts and stuff and custom clothes. And yeah, everything was just out of proportion, like in size. And like there were these industrial areas nearby, and like these huge pipes that just let out a flow of like, you know, really gross liquids. And like I was just looking through that flea market. Okay, here's the next dream. I was in my basement at home listening to country music, and the basement was wide open and dirty. I kept going upstairs because I heard people walking, but I could only find my dogs. I left to see my grandpa, walking to the gas station to see my cousin. I was in the school, and it was combined with a house, or my house, and my grandma was talking to me, and it was a big open room that had a similar energy to my back living room. I don't remember that, and I wish I could like expand upon that more, but I can't because I don't remember that dream. Here's another dream, really fractured. I was in a really open and shiny place. It was huge. The world was like Serious Sam. I was in a really messy garage, and I talked to my neighbor. I also played bedwetter / Travis Miller. I think I know what I was talking about when I say the Serious Sam. A lot of these take place in like these kind of like Versailles kind of locations, like European, like artsy places, if that makes sense. And it's kind of like a mixture of like the console ports for Serious Sam. I guess the closest one I could say would be like the Xbox version of like the first Encounter. But it was like through Versailles, and there were fields, and there were really surreal locations, kind of similar to, I'd say, Next Encounter. Some locations were like, you know, Rome. where there'd be like these huge slopes, and they'd be like in these water rooms where there were these hallways alongside these huge water rooms that just spat out enemies. Like, it was really interesting, but really artsy, really European kind of vibe, really like paintings on walls and stuff. I guess the best way to explain it would be like, next encounter mixed with like first encounter.